Hey guys, so I am unboxing, it's already unboxed as you can tell, the new HDMI switch from Philips. This is part of their Elite division, I guess, and it is compatible with, it's optimized, I should say, for 4K UHD, full HD 1080p, and there you go, right there. I do have some HDMI cables, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. I have various switchers, there's no doubt. Some have kind of passed the prime, if you will, kind of worn out. This one is by Philips, so I'm guessing it's going to be, a good brand, because the one I have in the rec room right now is a GE, and that's decent. It's still decent. It's a three-way switch, but it's got like a little button in the middle where you switch it. And then of course the one I got there is a Kinko or something like that. I think that's what it is. But this is the remote that one comes with. Right there. This is the remote that goes with that switcher over there. And that is, well, it's not a Kinko, it's a ARC Power HDMI switcher, as you can see. And it works, it's just a little tricky to operate sometimes. But this one is a Philips, and this cost about, I think, what did it cost me? Let me see here. $39.99. So if something's going to cost you 40 bucks, it's got to be worth it, right? It's got to be worth it. So anyway, here's the device still in the bubble wrap. Instruction manuals. Here's the remote for selecting, and of course here is the plug right there. So yeah, this is basically as we try to get it out here carefully. There we go. This is basically a new one. I don't know when it was released or anything, but it's definitely new. Here are the ports on the back, right here. So it's pretty cool. And the reason I got this wasn't to replace the other one, but it's because I have all these other HDMI devices, and I want to try to play at least my Xbox S without having to switch in and out on my my Blu-ray player and all that, as well as I want to try to hook up maybe my Retrocade as well. So we'll see how good this is, because I noticed a lot of people buying this up lately. They were buying it up, and when I went to go get this one, this was the last one. So apparently it's a very popular device for people to utilize and stuff. And then of course, like I said, here's the remote right here. And I think the reason they are pretty much coming out and telling you this is compatible, or optimized I should say, for 4K is because the one I have there is the same way, pretty much. It's the same way. But what's interesting about it, though, is the fact that even though it's the same way, it has some issues and everything. Like, it'll switch between the Ruco. Like, the Ruco is probably on there right now, connected to it right now. Like, if I go to the next thing, I'll go to go to it, basically, it's going to switch right over to the Ruco. Oh, it's automatically going to, yeah, it's automatically going to be on the Ruco. But when I turn on the PlayStation, it'll go right to the PlayStation. So, that's kind of cool. But I kind of want to have it to where it's basically, I could just, well, basically I could switch it back and forth. And I think that's why you're starting to see a lot of these switches, a lot of these companies, independent and major, like Philips, coming out with these and saying, hey, they're 4K compatible, because that way you have something for your 4K televisions to utilize. So it's got a select button on here, obviously, and then here on the front is the numbers, and you got an input on the front, which I think is pretty cool. And then on the back, I'm assuming, if I look here on the camera, you got an output, and you got inputs on here. So you got an input on the front, and you got an outputs on the back, along with, you got an output. Well, here's how they got it designed. You got an input on the front for your primary one, I guess, and then an output, you know, right here on the back, along with the DC power, and then you got all these other inputs as well. So you got 3 inputs on the back, 1 on the front. Looks pretty cool. But will it work? We're about to find out, and when I do, I'll be back with you. Okay, before I connect it, here's the plug. And what's interesting about the plug, you can see it right here already. It's not one of the USB plugs. It's actually more of a regular box plug. No, not USB. And I think that's pretty cool, because I think one of the things that may have been addressed is you use the USB plugs, and I think, you know, if you don't have the plug that goes with it and you have to use another plug, that might cause some issues and all that. So we actually have a different plug here, and it's basically a regular box plug. So I like that. I like that little improvement. But we'll see if it helps make it work even better. And again, like I said, I'll be back. Okay, guys, so I have it connected, and I can positively say it does work. Now, do certain connections based maybe on the HDMI plug take time to read? Absolutely. There is no doubt about that. But it only takes like maybe a millisecond or a couple of seconds, because you're switching from one source to the other. But they do work. So right here on the first input, I have my Xbox 360, which right now I guess is doing an update or something. Then the second one right here is my DVD player. Then that's my Super Retrocade, which I could switch out with either my Switch, not my Switch, but either with the NES or SNES Classic or the Genesis Mini, or use one of the HDMI connectors that they made for things like the PlayStation and the TurboGrafx. So I have that in its place right now. That right there is the Blu-ray player, right there, and then that is the output right there as well. Now I know you're curious, you're probably thinking, well, does it truly work? Well, I'll show you. So I'm going to switch from here, going to go from YouTube. So here's the PlayStation, that's already in there. Here's the Blu-ray, alright? So it's not going to say anything right now, right? But it's automatically going to go to that. Well, it's automatically on, I should say. The Blu-ray is off right now, the Ultra Blu-ray. But here's 4. This is where it's connected at. This is the Blu-ray. We're going to switch over to 4, and it should pop up. There you go. Boom. It popped up as soon as I said 4. Or as soon as I put it on 4, okay? It popped up. And it did a little thing there, but that's to be expected. But it popped up, which is good. Hopefully that's not an issue or anything. But it popped up because it's reading the signal. Now, and it did it again. That's the one thing about these converters. You got to be a little careful with them, because they might act up. I don't know what it is, but it's optimized for it. It's supposed to be optimized for it anyway. You know, if that's not the case, then I may have to change it, but we'll see. Right now it seems to be okay. I think it's just adjusting is what it's doing. But it seemed that's the first time it's done that, so I think it's just adjusting and all that. If anything, if it keeps up, you know, I may just have to switch it over and all that. But I think it's just trying to adjust itself. See, it stays a little longer and longer. I think it's trying to read it. Is what it's trying to do. Now, as you can see, it's staying a little bit longer. I think you just gotta, you know, move it a little bit and it'll be fine after a while. It's, like I said, it's trying to read it. I think that's the one issue people will have. It's like, wait a minute, I thought it's supposed to work. It does work, kind of like what it did with here a little bit, but what it does is it goes back and forth because it's trying to make sure it gets the signal. It's trying to make sure it gets the signal. So that works. Now, number 2 is the DVD player, which is this one, and then there it goes again. It's going to do that, like I said. Once in a while it's going to do that. I think it's, I don't know what it is with these switchers, but once in a while, the longer it stays, the better it is. So it's going to stay for a while. There's no doubt. I mean, I'll be using my Blu-ray player and my DVD player once in a while, and if it does this when I'm watching Blu-rays, then I may have to switch it back, but we will see. We will see. Right now, it's doing what I'm hoping it's going to do. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. Again, it's just common for switchers to do that because they're adjusting to the whole thing. Now, we're going to go to number 2, right? Now, it just went off again while I was switching, all right? Hopefully that's not an issue. Now, number 2 is the DVD player. And you see with this circling, it's trying to, it's trying to read the source, right? Now, we're going to turn turn the DVD player on with this, and it should read the source. It will read the source, basically. And there you go. There's the DVD player. Now, again, you will say, well, what if it does it when you're watching Blu-rays? Well, I have my Xbox as well, okay, and it's updating right now. But the DVD is right there, so that's good. So that's working. The only question is the volume. Does the volume work? We don't know yet. But like I said, when you switch over to 4 and everything, the Blu-ray player is there. It does read it. It does read and connect to the Blu-ray player. I think what interferes with it, though, is the fact that you have all these other connections. See? Like it's trying to adjust. Like maybe it should be like the primary one. I'm not really sure. But it does work. There's no doubt. It's done this before. Like I said, it's done this before when I tried connecting that, which is why I made its own individual plug. Nothing's going to be perfect. I'm going to tell you that right now. When it comes to these kind of switchers, whether the major brands or not so major brands, whatever, they're going to have issues because you're trying to compatibilize them with 4K and maybe to an extension 8K, and it takes them a while to read it because they're not used to it. They're trying to read what you're giving to them. So you want to make sure that it reads it. Now, you're playing something, you're thinking, well, how am I supposed to play something if it's going to do that? And that is a good question. But I think over time it will adjust. It will adjust itself. The only time I'm ever going to play the Blu-ray player actually is if things happen. Like the other day, our internet went out, so I was watching Transformers on there. Now, again, if any issue does take place, I could just unplug it, put it into the Blu-ray player, and put it into the TV. That's not a big deal. It's not a big deal whatsoever. It does this. It's going to do this at times because it's trying to read the 4K signal. It's trying to read it. It does register it. That's why I will get at that for you. It does register the signal. See? Watch. I'll go over here. And there it is. It's at the Blu-ray. See, it says Blu-ray. It knows the signal, but it's taking time to adjust. I think that's the problem. Now, I don't know if it's supposed to be it's supposed to be primary or what. I don't know. I'll probably mess with it a little bit over time, but it does work. Now, as you can tell, the more it stays, the more more it'll be stabilized. And I think it might be, like I say, the wiring. It might be the wiring too, and that being the HDMI cable because it's bending from where it was to another output. And then of course I'm using this long HDMI cable, which I've used before, and I think that might be what's causing a bit of the interference. It's the long cable and the signals and everything as well. Now, as far as but yeah, all of them do work. Now, number 3 is my Super Retrocade, alright? Number 3 is the Retrocade, as of right now, which is basically my holder. It's basically my holding pattern, if you will. And it takes time for the signal to be read. Okay? It takes time for the signal to be read. That's the one thing about these deals. Is it takes time for the signal to be read. And sometimes you have to go back and forth with these before they read them. At least that's what I'm thinking. See, it pops back, it pops on. Basically, again, what I'm saying is it's not gonna be perfect, but as long as you can get a majority of what you watch, on there, you're good. And as you could hear, The retrocade is right there, which I like, so I can play that now at any time. The only issue, and it's always been an issue no matter what the converter is the Blu-ray. But the Blu-ray, I think the longer it stays that way, and maybe over time if I get another HDMI cable to replace it, it'll help it out. It'll work with it. But again, I only play this when I can't watch anything else. Majority of what I have on here, I can get digitally. There's no doubt it will be available digitally. But now we go to the Xbox, and I know that's what you guys are curious about. So we're going to turn on the Xbox and watch. There we go. The Xbox is on. Now you notice it's not doing what the Blu-ray did, so I'm assuming it might be the plug. I'm assuming it might be the plug. And again, you got to realize I'm doing a mixture of a lot of stuff here. I'm doing a mixture of, here's a 4K player, which again, this could benefit as a 4K player too. So, you know, if I don't want to watch on there and anything, I can watch on here, which isn't a problem. You know, so besides that, everything else is working fine. Again, you're going to experience some things with these kind of switches, but this one seems to be the most reliable one right now. Seems to be. Again, the only thing about it when it comes to the Blu-ray player here is the Blu-ray player, you know, is going to do a little flickering here and there. And if that's an issue, all you have to do, long story short, is just unplug the Blu-ray player and unplug the switcher, you know, the HDMI plugs that is, put the Blu-ray player HDMI back into the TV, and you'll be okay. I know it's a bit of a hassle, but you know what? You know, having the Philips thing is worth having, in my opinion. It really is. Again, the only issue you'll have is with the 4K Blu-rays, and that's fine, or the 4K Blu-ray player, whether it's a UHD or a regular Blu-ray. Those are the only issues. Besides that, you should be okay. You should be okay because, as we know, a majority of things are basically on Blu-ray. You know, not Blu-ray, but on digital now. So if you want to get it on digital, you can do that. But anyway, though, guys, I do recommend getting it. Again, like I said, expect some issues, basically, when it comes to this. I think over time, it will adjust. It will, I think if you really get it in there, it will adjust and everything. You know, that being the HDMI cord. But you should be alright. Like right here, you're perfectly fine. So if you just want to use this as your UHD Blu-ray player, that's your option too. So you're going to have two options, just in case, like let's say this one, it works, it connects. Again, the more it gets utilized, get used to this and all that, it should be fine. But if you don't want to deal with that, and this one works perfectly, then just go with the Xbox One. That's all I can say. But yeah, just wanted to show that off to you guys. Again, you know, it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's worth, you know, but I think it's worth checking out and getting a hold of when you get the opportunity. But until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chat, super stickers are open during the live chat of the premiere. Super thanks afterwards. You can find me at BW Roses Discussions, all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at VENMO at BW Roses for content you can't get anywhere else. As well as check me out over at Venmo at Brian-Warmer-2 and Cash App at BW Roses 98 to support me there financially, ASAP. As well as at patreon.com/BW Roses, a $1, $3 tier. Also check me out at deviantart.com and at my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. So until next time, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you've gotten this and what are your thoughts overall about it. And until next time. Okay, so before I add, I'll put this all together, I should say. I just want to come out and tell you that I did switch over the 4 and the 2 ports, inputs, on my new Philips HDMI switcher, and right now that seems to have done the trick. Now when I when I had it originally connected, the wire here for the Blu-ray was underneath underneath the retrocade, so that might have caused some interference, but now it's on its own. It's, you know, back to back with the Xbox, so that seemed to have worked. For right now, it seemed to have worked. The other reason too is because of the fact that the DVD player, it works visually, but there's no volume coming out. There's no sound, and that happened with the other switcher I have on the other side, the the IR power switcher. For some reason, the DVD player, the Magnavox one, does not. I don't know if it's the HDMI switch, or it's the box, or it's the player itself, but it does not, want to be compatible with the switchers for the 4K. Now, before you even say anything, I did put it directly into the TV beforehand. Not today, but in the past several months. Not several months, but in the past year, I've done that, and it did the same thing with the DVD. It did the same thing with the TV. It did not, it did not issue any sound out of the player. It read it as 720 by 480, so that might be the issue. Like, hey, it'll show the picture, it just won't do the sound because reasons. I don't know. Maybe I need to get a new HDMI cable. I don't know. We'll look into that. But for right now, I switched over the Blu-ray player over the input 2 into the input 2 port, I should say, and the DVD player over to the 4 input port instead. So input 2 port, I should say. And trying to think. The reason I'm pausing is trying to make sure I word it right. The input 2 port has the Blu-ray player, and the input 4 port has the DVD player. So that's about it. Now that does make switching out maybe to, let's say, my NES, SNES Classics, my other game systems that have HDMI compatibility or extension, or the HDMI connectors that were made for them, modified for them. It does make it a lot easier to connect those and play those. But I just wanted to let you guys know about that, and before I put this all together as a little bit of a last piece. And till next time, talk to you later.